Good morning, I'm Rob Kaiser, publisher of the Greater Wilmington Business Journal. Welcome to the Power Breakfast Series. We have with us today Mayor Bill Saffo and the 7 individuals who are looking to join him on Wilmington City Council. Before we get going, I'd like to make a few announcements. First, I want to make sure everyone knows the 2023 Wilmington Biz Conference and Expo will be right here at the Convention Center on October 5th. This event includes a keynote lunch on our economic outlook with UNCW's Swain Center, an expo hall with more than 100 local exhibitors, 16 business seminars, and a new element. We're going to have a careers and talent focus in the morning where local employers can talk with students from UNCW, Cape Fear Community College, Brunswick Community College, and others about current job openings, internships, and apprenticeships. To learn more and register, you can scan the QR code that's in your program or visit the event website at wilmingtonbizexpo.com. I'd also like to recognize the sponsors who make this Power Breakfast series possible. Our presenting sponsors, who you'll hear from in a moment, are First National Bank and Warden Smith. Our parking sponsor is Highland Roofing, and you'll find your parking pass in the table tent, the Highland Roof table tent on your table. And our tech sponsor is Cloudwise. Our corporate sponsors are Bank of America, Becker Morgan, Coldwell Banker Commercial Suncoast Partners, Cape Fear Community College, Cape Fear Realtors, Cape Fear Solar Systems, Cape Fear Commercial, Copiers Plus, Cumulus Media, Customers Bank, Delta Dental, Dual Boot Partners, Ernie & Company, ECS, Excite Credit Union, Green Resources, ILM Airport, Lumos, Matthews Motors, Megacorp Logistics, Miller Mott College, the Cardinal Point East Group at Morgan Stanley, New Hanover County, Novant Health, PB Mayors, Rev Federal Credit Union, South State Bank, Target Solutions, Tailored Construction Services, UNCW's Cameron School of Business and the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, Wells Fargo, and the Wilmington Chamber of Commerce. Let's please have a round of applause for all of our sponsors. We'll now hear from our presenting sponsors, first Sandy Spears with First National Bank, and then Al Clybourne with Warden Smith.
Good morning. Wake up. All right, I was told to keep this short. So here goes, pay attention. It's going to be like 45 seconds or so, so if you blink, you're going to miss this. And if you know me, you know that talking for a short period of time about anything is very, very difficult for me. When I learned that the theme of today's Power Breakfast was Wilmington's direction, of course, the first thing that popped into my head was one of my favorite Dr. Seuss quotes. And yes, you've probably heard this one here before. So the quote goes, "You have brains in your head, you have feet in your shoes, you can steer yourself any direction you choose." So today, I look forward to hearing from these candidates about their plan and direction they choose to lead Wilmington into the future. And we all need to think about what Dr. Seuss is saying, that we can lead ourselves in any direction that we choose, for good or for bad. And if you're looking for a better direction for your banking needs, whether it's commercial, small business, mortgage, or wealth, please come see us at First National Bank, table number 4. Thank you. Had to throw in a commercial.
Well, good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning. I see a lot of familiar faces, but for those of you who don't know me, Al Clybourne, I am an attorney here in Wilmington. I'm with the law firm of Warden Smith, and what a great program that the Business Journal has assembled for us today. Really looking forward to the presentation. And let me just say, speaking of business, short little plug here. Warden Smith, I hope you recognize our reputation for business representation. We represent businesses across the state of North Carolina. We've got offices in Wilmington, Raleigh, New Bern, Greenville, Asheville. So we represent business across the state of North Carolina. If you have business needs, whether it's transactional or litigation, if we can help, let us know. Plug number 2, we have recently installed a family law section in our Wilmington office. We've got 3 veteran family law attorneys here in Wilmington. So if you need a divorce or family law attorney, don't raise your hand, please. If you know somebody who needs assistance in that department, let us know. We're glad to help. Some of you may remember that I served on the New Hanover County Board of Elections for about 10 years, and that was some time ago, but I served on that board for about 10 years. And what I remember, and what used to surprise me, is the amount of attention that our national and state races would get compared to the lack of attention that our local races would get. And that always surprised me. And it surprised me because I'll make the case, and I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but I'll make the case that the people who sit on city council or our board of county commissioners, those folks are going to have far more impact on the shape of this community that we all choose to call home. They're going to have far more impact on Wilmington, North Carolina than the folks who are serving up in Raleigh or even Washington, D.C. So with that in mind, please give your attention to the program this morning. I think it's going to be a treat for us to be able to have a front row seat as we listen to what the candidates have to say about their vision for the future of Wilmington. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Al and Sandy. Our first discussion today is with Wilmington Mayor Bill Saffo, and that will be followed with a discussion with the 7 candidates for Wilmington City Council. Mayor Saffo is running unopposed this year, but we didn't think that was any fun, so we decided to bring in an opponent for you today, Mr. Mayor.
I know.
And I have to warn you, this opponent knows more about Wilmington than you do. I'm, of course, talking about ChatGPT. We'll first ask the mayor a question, and then ChatGPT can absorb his answer and respond with an even better one. By the end of the morning, we may be the first city in America with an AI mayor. Seriously, Mayor Saffo will be interviewed on stage today by Business Journal Managing Editor C.C. Nunn. I'll turn it over to you, C.C.
Welcome, everyone. If you would like to ask Mayor Saffo a question, you are welcome to text 910-264-8955. For my first question, Mayor, and I've asked you this before, do you think that Wilmington's mayor should have a 30-year term limit, a 40-year term limit, or a 50-year term limit? What do you think?
Every election is possibly a term limit. So it's imperative that, you know, when you're running for public office, take into consideration that anybody that's running city council or the mayors, we run in not a gerrymandered district at large. And for some reason, they punish the mayor because we have to run every 2 years. The other guys get every 4 years. But, you know, I've always said that every election is a referendum on you and the job that you have done. And I've been blessed to have gone through 9 of these, going on my 10th. And, but it's been a very exciting time to be the mayor of this great city of Wilmington, North Carolina. In the last 20-some years, what we have seen happen in Wilmington has been, in my opinion, remarkable. And so it's just been an honor and a privilege also to sit here serving the people of this community.
Is that what keeps you coming back for more?
What keeps me coming back for more? There's a lot of things that keep you coming back for more. I mean, when you look out amongst this crowd, there's a lot of people in this room that work tirelessly every day to make this community a much better place. It didn't come by happenstance. It didn't come by people not working together. It's all of us. And I'd say this, you know, that it's not about me or I, it's about we. We work together. And a lot of the plans, a lot of the ideas, a lot of the thoughts that we as a community have been talking about for many, many years have come to fruition. And we should be very proud of that as a community, what we've been able to accomplish for many years now.
And, you know, obviously Wilmington, the Wilmington area is growing and keeps growing. People want to come here. What do you think is the most challenging issue in terms of growing pains for the city?
It's got to be infrastructure. It probably is the most important. That's one of the things that I continue to hear from the community. It keeps coming up in all of our citizen survey. Is transportation, especially. How do we move people around in this community? The quality of life, making certain that all of the new residents that are now calling Wilmington home, that are moving into this area. How do we, bring all these folks into the community, not only to the city of Wilmington, but also the surrounding communities, and keep this quality of life that we call Wilmington and call New Hanover County. This is a great part of the state, and people have found us, and people will continue to move here. The projections for growth in this region is unbelievable. What we're going to see probably in the next 20 years is going to be something I don't think any of us can fathom. But it's not only Wilmington, it's not only New Hanover County, it's the region itself that is growing. And I think one of the things the challenges that we will have moving forward is we just can't speak as Wilmington anymore, or New Hanover County anymore. We have to speak as a region today in respect to a lot of different things, whether it be infrastructure, whether it be quality of our water in the Cape Fear River, whether it be placement of the Cape Fear Memorial Bridge, whatever the case may be, we're going to have to speak with a regional voice as opposed to just individually.
Okay. And you brought up the bridge. How do you see, it needs to be replaced. It's 54 years old. It's nearing the end of its useful life, and it has to be expensively maintained. What's the end game there? How do you see that bridge actually ever getting replaced?
It's going to be replaced at some point in time. I think it's going to take a lot of work from both sides of the river, on the east bank and on the west bank of the Cape Fear, as to what this bridge is going to look like, the impacts it will have in New Hanover County and the city of Wilmington, the impacts it will have in Brunswick County. Remember, 23% of the population of Brunswick County crosses that bridge every single day and comes into New Hanover County for a variety of different reasons. That is a very important infrastructure for our community. There's been talk about replacing it with a toll bridge. What does that toll mean? How much is it going to cost? And what is the economic impact to the people that cross it every single day? And if you don't cross that bridge because of the toll, what is the impact to the community in regards to people having to go over the Isabel Holmes Bridge and possibly have to come to the city to cross that way? So there's a lot of discussions we're going to have about this bridge in the coming years, but it's extremely important infrastructure component for our community and something that is going to be replaced at some point in time, whether it's with a toll or whether it comes through federal grants with state support, but it will be replaced.
Okay, and along the same lines of growth, there's been a lot of attention, put toward the city's purchase of the Thermo Fisher building, former PPD headquarters. We had an audience question about, can you please justify why public servants are going to be occupying the most expensive real estate in downtown Wilmington on the top floor of the PPD building?
Well, it's been a big topic of discussion. First and foremost, I think that the city of Wilmington and the elected leaders made a good financial decision in purchasing the Thermo Fisher building. It saved us $55 million. We looked at the possibility of replacing 305 Chestnut Street, and that cost was about $96 million. And we said, no, we're not going to spend that kind of money. Thermo Fisher became available, and we purchased it for almost $70 million, which I think was a tremendous purchase for the citizens. First and foremost, this is a municipal building. There are going to be space. There is space available in there for rent, and it will be leased. I think the goal and the objective, at least from my perspective, is that how do you move into that building right now spending the least amount of taxpayers' money? And that is something that we've had LS3P Boney evaluate for us because it's 375,000 square feet. We, the elected officials, don't determine which floor we're going to be on, although we will have a say in that. I think the issue comes down to is if we go to the third floor, the fourth floor, whatever floor they put us on, there will be a significant amount of money that will have to be spent to retrofit those particular floors for us to move into it. The numbers that we've just gotten is about between $125 to $150 a foot. That equates to about $3.5 to $5 million if you have to retrofit a floor, not just for the elected leaders, but this is for city employees that would be moving into the building. So can you move into the building for little or no money in the top floors, which is what the recommendation is, giving us also the opportunity that if we so choose, to stay there and to continue to try to lease the top floors. If you can get more than $30 a foot, which is basically what Thermo Fisher is paying us, and get $40 a foot, $45 a foot, or whatever the thing is, it's no big deal for us to pick up our stuff and move out of that particular unit and move down to the lower floors. But remember, we will be spending a significant amount of taxpayers' money and retrofitting those floors for us. So our goal and objective was to move into the building for the least amount of money to begin with, and we can still look at opportunities to move to another floor because it'll take about 12 to 18 months to finish that particular floor for the city employees and for the city council mayor to be able to move into. So right now, those two top floors are ready to move into with all we have to do is move our stuff in. If we move to the bottom floors, it will cost some money. But I'm also of the mindset that if you can get more money for the top floors, by all means, go get it. But remember, there will be a cost associated with it.
And when you say that, you said $5 million per floor?
Between $3.5 to $5 million. That's based on $125 to $150 a foot, and we just got those numbers. And one of the things that I think that we did a bad job on is getting that specific number to the community much quicker than we did. It's taken us some time to be able to evaluate what the cost would be to retrofit that floor, but that's about what the cost would be.
Okay. All right, and so when do you think that, those moves would take place? Is that still up in the air as far as like when the city will shift over to?
Well, I think the city will start making the transition and the move into those particular floors. As far as moving into the lower floors, if we can rent the top floors for good money, then by all means, then we would move to the bottom floors. But it would take some time, or we would have to have some place of transition while that takes place.
Right. Okay, and then I've got another audience question. What, as mayor, are you doing to improve the affordable housing situation? People with fewer resources are being forced out of the town they grew up in.
Well, there is a lot more people moving into the community. Remember, the city of Wilmington encompasses 52 square miles. It goes from the river to the Intercoastal Waterway, from MLK Parkway to 17th Street. It's a very small geographic area. And so what we have done in this past year was working between the private sector and the public sector is to put about 530 units where we've been able to partner with tax credit funded developers that are coming in here putting affordable housing in place. That's probably the most significant amount of affordable housing that we have approved, working with public and private sector working together. But this is not just something that's going to be fixed in Wilmington. It won't just be fixed in New Hanover. This is a regional issue that affects all of us. And so one of the things that we've had a great partnership with is New Hanover County, and the amount of money and effort that they have put into looking at affordability. Since the county has a lot more land availability moving forward in the future, I see a lot more opportunity in the county than I do in the city in respect to affordability. But I think that we do have to work together to make certain that affordability is part of our overall game plan for the city and the county, because it is very important to the people that live in this community. Taking into consideration that even just 60% AMI, which is primarily your civil servants, people that are police officers, firemen, teachers, that are civil servants, are even having a tough time in being able to find housing in Wilmington and New Hanover County. That's why you're starting to see the explosion of growth in the surrounding areas, because of the availability of land and for people to be able to move further and further out. And we're seeing the same phenomenon in every city across the state of North Carolina. Since the state of North Carolina is one of the fastest growing states in the country, we've put in I think 1 million people came in the last decade. The projections are for another additional 1 million people to come between 2020 and 2030 into the state of North Carolina. And the 4 areas of the state that have been identified as having the highest percentage of growth of that 1 million is Buncombe, New Hanover, Mecklenburg, and Wayne. So we're going to continue to see that population growth coming here, but a lot more in respect to affordability will start being pushed out into Brunswick and the Pender counties as which we have already beginning to have seen now for the last 20 years.
Well, and sort of as part of that, but also I wanted to ask you about it in a more broad way. The Northern Gateway, the city of Wilmington has amassed, properties down there, including the parcels associated with the Thermo Fisher building that aren't in use now. And would I wanted to ask you about your vision for the Northern Gateway, but first, would there be a component of affordable housing that the city would require for that project?
Well, right now, there is already a component of affordability in that particular plan. I believe the developer has put in there 5%. We want to see if we can get more than 5%, see if we can get 15%, which we think is important. One of the reasons that the city purchased that property was because we wanted to make certain that we had a say as a city as to what that development would look like. Same developer, Roger Perry, that did the River Place, the old parking deck there on Water Street, that I think did a phenomenal job. Good public-private partnership, created a significant amount of tax base for us, plus the city was able to repurpose that particular parking deck and also have public parking there. Same developer, and hopefully we can still make that deal work with them. If it is a challenging environment currently with what interest rates are and what the market conditions are, but I do feel that we are going to have a magnificent entranceway into the city of Wilmington, and something that the citizens and the community will have a say in moving forward.
And what else do you see being there besides a residential component?
Well, I see residential, I see hotels, I see possibly office space, I see a possible festival street where we can block the streets off when we have the big concerts down here in the evening, where we can have it as a festival type of an atmosphere down there. Food courts, there's been a variety of things that have been talked about. The market will dictate a lot of that, but I do think hotel space, especially in the downtown area, is desperately needed. In my opinion, based on what I've heard from Frida Brady, who runs this particular center, we need between 300 and 500 additional hotel rooms in the downtown area. We're victims of our own success because of what we have seen with the amphitheater, which when we have big concerts down here, most of these hotel rooms down here get booked. And by the way, 65% of the people that come to that amphitheater in downtown are from out of town. So we know that a lot of that hotel space is eaten up. And then if you have a conference or if you have a convention that's taking place here, it's challenging because most planners have to probably cobble together about 10 to 15 different hotels to make the convention or the conference work here. So it's challenging from an event planner's point of view. But it's a great problem to have. And so if you know of anybody that needs to build a hotel, wants to build a hotel, come downtown. We'd love to have you. And we need you.
And what are you hoping timing-wise to get that agreement ironed out with East-West, or somehow move forward with some developer with Northern Gateway?
Well, we have the memorandum of what they call understanding already in place and agreed upon. Now it's the development agreement, which basically irons out and spells out exactly what they will do, what the city would do, and the time frame that it would take place. Because obviously there's a certain amount of infrastructure or investment that we might have to make. There's a certain amount of investment that they have to make in certain time frames. So that's what we are working through now, is the fine details of that development agreement.
And that's just going to take time? I mean, do you have like a goal?
You can imagine, when you can imagine a multi-million-dollar project like that, you're thinking about every single aspect of that project. And so things will change. You have to prepare for that. Economics change. The whole plan may change from time to time. I think just laying all that out, spelling it all out, determining who's going to pay for what, takes some time, and you want to make certain that you're going through that with a fine-tooth comb and you're looking at it line by line to make sure that the taxpayers are getting a good, fair deal in the investment that they're going to make and we're going to make.
And what cities do you get inspiration from when you're thinking about Wilmington's future?
I think us. I mean, I can't tell, but, we have spent a lot of time going around the country. I know the Chamber has chamber trips, and we go around the country and we take a look at other cities that are doing unique things. You go to Austin, Texas, you go to, obviously, to Charleston, and I had a lot of interaction with Mayor Joe Riley down there and the things that they put in place down there that made them extremely successful. Been down to Savannah and looked at a lot of their ordinances and what they do. Just went down to Fort Lauderdale and saw some of the unique things that are happening down there. There's a lot of cities around the country that are doing a lot of great things. The amphitheater, for example, that we built here as a community, one of the inspirations we got was from a park amphitheater in Nashville, Tennessee on the Columbia River. It's very similar to this. We went down there and we took a look at it. I know that me and Councilman Reinbach were there on an event, and we had an opportunity to go down there and take a look at it. It was outstanding, and that's something that we emulated and looked at, and we challenged our staff to go out around the country to look at the best parks that were out there. And they came up with this concept, which has been phenomenal. I mean, it's one of the places now where you have large acts now that want to play, and they'll play more than a couple of dates because they want to be here in Wilmington and to play this unique amphitheater. But, you know, we go around the country, we're always looking for ideas. It doesn't matter where those ideas may percolate from, but I think it's important that we keep our eyes open and always look for the best ideas or the best things that are out there for our cities to try to emulate and change. And look, and we're starting to see people now coming to Wilmington to try to see what we're doing right and looking at the unique things that we have done as a community, which I think is unique and interesting. We never saw that in the past, but we're seeing it now a lot more than usual.
Well, let me ask you about something that's been a challenge, especially recently. What is the plan for the homeless population in Wilmington? There's been an obvious uptick in the number of people who have nowhere to go. What will you do as mayor to address that?
In my opinion, my view, based on what I have seen and the examples that have been shown to me, and what we've been part of, is you're not going to be able to get ahead of this problem unless you have some sort of supportive housing with supportive services. Some of these folks that find themselves homeless, and I want to say this, that there's people that experience homelessness, but they get on their feet pretty quickly. But there are others, which we call the chronically homeless, that's probably what you're seeing on the street, and for whatever known reason that they're homeless is the challenge that we all see. We did a project with Katrina and Good Shepherd at Lakeside Reserve, and I remember the community, the neighborhood coming out and having serious concerns about the impacts that this particular place would have on that neighborhood. And we said, trust us, we can do this and we'll do it right. I had a lot of meetings with Katrina just to make certain that I understood what those service providers were going to do when we did it. I think we built 48 units there, and it has been an outstanding project. It's been an outstanding development for the people that are unsheltered. That's the model that you have to use if you really want to get ahead of it. The other thing that I will tell you is that, and one of the things that I'm asking for is that as we get out and do the outreach, and I know the county is helping us in this, the city and the county have come together and put in about $1.4 million to evaluate this, is to determine where the people are coming from. I mean, there's always folklore that people are shipping them from other parts of the country or areas into the city of Wilmington, and I have not seen evidence of that, but we're going to investigate it to make certain that that's not happening. And if it is, we'll pick up the telephone and talk to those elected officials there to tell them that. But I think moving forward is, how do we talk about it as a region? Because if they don't have services in Brunswick or Pender or other counties in the surrounding area, and people find themselves unsheltered, there's a lot of service providers and nonprofits that are here in Wilmington that are doing a great job, but that brings more people into the community. So this is going to be a challenging thing moving forward. It's probably one of the most challenging things that any elected official has to deal with. A lot of folks do not want any kind of housing or supportive housing near their neighborhoods. Others are concerned about a multitude of different things. So this is going to be a challenging thing moving forward. And I don't have all of the answers, but from what I have seen with the groups that we have worked with, there are models out there that can work, but how much do you build? How much can you build? And do you build so much that you attract more people here? Because people from other parts of the state or areas will say, Wilmington has places for you to go to Wilmington. So it's a balancing act that we also have to constantly be evaluating, and it's something that not only the city of Wilmington is dealing with, but every city in the state of North Carolina is dealing with currently. I'm the vice chair of the Metro Mayors, which is the larger cities in the state of North Carolina, Greensboro, Winston-Salem, Asheville, and we're all dealing with the same issue. It's just the challenge is, where do you put them, and how do you provide the services for those that need services that don't have them currently, and for people to live in a good place, safe place.
We have another audience question going back to the bridge. Should we start talking about, multiple bridges when we're talking about the replacement? Most cities, even smaller than ours, have multiple bridges that include public transportation and pedestrian-only bridges. What do you think about that?
Well, I think a pedestrian component needs to be part of the bridge no matter what we do. I mean, I think a pedestrian component needs to be part of any roadway today. I mean, we're spending a lot of money in retrofitting infrastructure in our community for people to get around. The Cross City Trail is a great example of that. When we did it back in 2008, and I remember hearing this from people, you're building a corridor of crime. This is terrible for the community. This is not right. What are you doing? We put it in place, and abracadabra, it's one of the great things that people love. And when we went out in 2014 for a transportation bond, out of the $55 million that was voted on, $20 million of it was for trails. So people want trails, and so that's got to be a component of it. The state of North Carolina is going to have a big say in this transportation initiative, working with the local municipalities and counties that are also going to be part of this process. Multiple bridges, I doubt you'll see multiple bridges, but I definitely think that you'll see one large bridge with a pedestrian component tied to it. But how that impacts us on this side is going to be very important, because if you make it a 6-lane bridge, which is what we're talking about, the impacts on Dawson Street and Worcester are going to be significant, which then files into what we call Department of Justice issues, into how that impacts that neighborhood or that part of the community. So that's going to also be a very important component in making this a reality going forward.
Okay. Let's talk about hurricane preparedness. We all remember Hurricane Florence and Wilmington being cut off from the rest of the world. And what do you think the city is doing now that is making it a better process?
Well, I think the big thing that we learned from Florence, since we had a Category 1 on top of us for 48 hours, is you've got to build more resiliency into anything that you do in regards to infrastructure or even from the private sector, to make sure that we're building in places that don't continuously flood. It's mind-boggling to me that we continue to build in the same locations in areas that continue to flood. We have to either purchase those properties from those individuals and move them to higher ground, making sure that we build infrastructure that can take care of a lot of the issues that we see in respect to flooding. I know that CNN and a lot of these news organizations, they come in when we have a flooding or a hurricane, they always go down to New Center Drive. Well, they won't be going to New Center Drive anymore, because the city of Wilmington just spent about $7.5 million to fix that issue. And that was a very important issue. And the other thing is that you have to have a stormwater plan. And the city of Wilmington, over the last 20 or 30 years now, has invested a significant amount of public money in retrofitting a lot of our stormwater projects around the city of Wilmington. Remember, when the city was being built, you may have a 25-inch pipe down that needs a 56-inch pipe. All of that stuff is being retrofitted, and we don't experience the outstanding flooding that you see in other parts of the region, because we have gotten ahead of that, but it is an ongoing issue. So that's one issue. The other thing was, in the aftermath of Florence, myself and George Brown, who was the Pender County chairman, created a task force, or a group of elected leaders, 60 of us, from New Bern, North Carolina, all the way up the east of 95, to start lobbying the state of North Carolina for more help in respect to resiliency and stormwater issues that we were experiencing, not only with hurricanes, but also with tropical storms, heavy rain events, where we're starting to see flooding taking place all over. And what ended up happening with that was the fact that the state of North Carolina, when we brought it to the state for debate and discussion, we found out that it wasn't only happening in eastern North Carolina, it was happening in the Piedmont, it was also happening in the mountains, because when a hurricane is coming up the Gulf, it impacts the western part of the state more than it impacts the eastern part of the state, obviously. When it comes up to, of course, the eastern seaboard, we get the impacts. But what we found was that we're experiencing flooding throughout the state of North Carolina, so the state, to their credit, listened to us, heard us. A collective body of people came together, not only eastern elected leaders, but people in the Piedmont and the western part of the state, and got a bill passed that the state funded at $800 million for stormwater resiliency. Part of that money went to help Bowling Springs rebuild their dam system there. We've used some of that money, because we have to apply for a grant to get that money for stormwater-related issues here. So it was a great start, and something that we're going to continue to work on. And but it's always challenging with the amount of people that are moving here, and what we're seeing upstream from us, up the Cape Fear River, and how those lock and dams work. What happens at Jordan Lake, a lot of people don't realize, but the level of the Cape Fear River is monitored at Jordan Lake in Raleigh, and determining how they release that water, at what times they release that water. Flooding really impacts other parts of our region more than it does us, but it still impacts us also. So having that discussion with the Corps of Engineers and working in a cohesive manner to make sure that we're addressing these kinds of issues moving forward. But I also want to say really quick, the Emergency Operations Center here and the emergency management people know that we all get together and we work out at the county's Emergency Operations Center there are outstanding. And what you don't see every single day is they have drills several times a year in preparation for not only hurricanes, but other disasters that may take place here, and they do an outstanding job. We have one of the best EOCs in the state of North Carolina. I'm very proud of that.
So what are your top 3 priorities for your next term?
Well, top 3 is making certain that we start divesting ourselves of the properties that we currently own to start paying down the debt on the Thermo Fisher building as quickly as possible. Get the Gateway project underway as quickly as possible, and work with whoever, whether it be Mr. Perry and East West Developers or another developer, in making certain that that becomes a reality. Continue to work for affordable housing in a cooperative and in a partnership with the County of New Hanover, and also to continue to work on infrastructure that really impacts each and every one of us every day. But I think one of the things that we are currently really spending a lot of time on, at least I am here, is working in conjunction with other elected leaders in the region to speak with one voice, because it affects us on transportation, it affects us on water quality, it affects us on film, it affects us on economic development, because what happens in Pender, what happens in Brunswick, whether it's a plant located there or not, impacts us and also helps us. So having a cooperative way of working regionally is going to be also important to us, to me.
Do you think, you mentioned infrastructure, do you think there's a way that we can fund some of these infrastructure needs with, you know, the money we get from visitors who come here?
Yes. One of the things that, and which is, it's a little bit different in Charlotte than it is here in Wilmington. Charlotte uses ROT tax and charges their tourists for a lot of the things that you see in Charlotte. And they get special legislation done by their delegation to be able to do that. I see the same thing in Charleston. When I was speaking with Joe Riley down there, I says, how do you get all these things done? He says, we use ROT tax to pay for it. That means room occupancy tax. So anybody that checks into a hotel room here pays a certain tax, and that tax goes back to help renourish the beaches and other things. I think it's time for us to start evaluating, seeing if we can get a little bit more money for that. Other communities do it and use it, and it's mind-boggling to me that we use taxpayers' money, property taxpayers' money, to do a lot of the infrastructure that a lot of other communities use room occupancy tax and other forms to pay for it. Riverwalk was paid for 100% by the taxpayers of this community. It's a great economic development issue, and a lot of people use it, and a lot of tourists use it, but tourists should help pay for it. And also, as the mayor of the city, I've never had, ever, one complaint about a room occupancy tax. Now, I can sure as hell tell you I get a lot of complaints about parking tickets, but I never get a complaint about a room occupancy tax. Never, ever. And I think it's time for us to start having that discussion with the state legislature and with our legislative delegation. They're the ones that are going to have to make that decision.
Okay, and this is my last question. Are you planning to run again after this upcoming term?
Oh, my Lord. Can I say something here? If you allow me. This is one of the reasons I do want to run. Wilmington is the number 3 best place to live in North Carolina, according to Bankrate.com. Wilmington ranks the top 10 cities for economic success in the Millikan Institute. Wilmington ranked as number 2 among all cities worldwide, population between 100 to 300K for best global startup ecosystems. Wilmington is a top city for people to relocate to by inbound survey. Wilmington, North Carolina, is named number 1 in the state for business by CNBC 2 years in a row. Sorry, North Carolina is. And Wilmington is the number 1 city for inbound moves by United Van Lines. Wilmington is the 5th fastest growing retirement city in America, according to Realtor.com. I say all that because it took all of us to make that happen. And whether I run or not makes no difference. But what I do want to say to everybody that sits out there, because I know a lot of you out there, I want to thank you for your public service to this community, because when the Seaboard Coastline left in 1955, I know a lot of us weren't even born, but 1 out of every 3 homes was for sale in this community. 12,000 people vacated Wilmington. It was a ghost town. And the elected leaders that took the initiatives and set in place things that we are all benefiting from today. And we have built upon that year after year after year. Whoever the mayor is, whoever the city council is, have continued to build upon that. That we would never be what I would call a one-mule town anymore. That we would have a diversity of jobs. That we would turn a college into a major university. That we would have a great medical system here in our community. That we are a tremendous economic driver of people that want to open up jobs. 30,000 jobs in the last 20 years from entrepreneurship. And that we have become one of the top destinations in the country. That didn't take place just because of the mayor of the city council. That took place because of a lot of people in here and a lot of work that went into this over many years. And many elected people and people in the private sector that we will never know that laid the foundation for what we have today. We just need to continue to build upon that. We have a great thing here in Wilmington, North Carolina, and I see nothing but success and just continue to move upward and making this, in my opinion, the greatest city in America.
I'm going to take that as a yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody.